All right, well, I thought I'd just make a quick video this week just to update you all on where the car's at and what's happening in the next couple of weeks. Like I keep saying, I haven't been doing too much in the shed. I've been playing in here with other stuff other than the cars. So yeah, I just haven't really touched the cars at all. I was hoping to have some stuff done and go potentially driving, but yeah, I just honestly haven't had the time. So if you watched last week's video, you'll know that in the next, I think it's 3.5 weeks, me and Sherry are going touring in his race car up to the Ultimate 4x4 Challenge in Outback, New South Wales. So stay tuned for all that. I'll put all the details in the last video, but they will be coming up soon. And I've also opened pre-orders for hoodies, shirts, hats, and stubby holders. So if you're interested in any of that, they're 2 different designs, black, white, gray, all the details are out there. Find me on Instagram, send me a message. The pre-orders are open for 3 or 4 weeks and then they'll be shut, so get on it. So I'll start off with the Wagon. I actually haven't driven that much. It sat in here for weeks and weeks. I actually put the pitties on the other night. I had to go do a quick recovery. I was a bit skeptical because on Queen's birthday, before Queen's birthday actually, I put 2 different winch motors on. One of them was brand new, I won it at Wild Dog. And the other winch motor was secondhand and potentially like already sort of hurt. I had a look on the inside and it didn't look too great, but it worked. So I put them motors on because I won one of them and this winch needed new motors anyway. So I put them on just to test them out to see if it was worth buying another new one of these. And it was like the last winch of that Queen's birthday trip. Yeah, I hurt potentially one of the winch motors. I'm hoping it's the old one. So it was my fault. Realistically, I run too much rope on this. There's like nearly 50 meters on there and it's just a bit too much. So what actually happened is we done a winch and it was sort of slightly pulling to one side. And usually I'm pretty onto it, but I thought that particular winch was the last one for the trip and all the rope was bunched up on one side. And yeah, I winched up this spot and I thought, yeah, I'll sort that out when I get home. And then we did one last track and we had the winch on it. And then what ended up happening is, you can actually see it here, the rope's a bit bunched up. This, like I've used it since then, but the rope was bunched up all on one side. And then when I went to go out on the winch, it sort of, all the rope expanded and locked the drum up. Like I clicked out on the winch to loosen the rope and it just went click, click. And I thought, gee, that's funny, like the winch was working. I thought potentially solenoids, but the winch was working before and it was working fine. So I clicked it once more and my volt gauge went from like, was it 29 and 29.2? And then I seen like 12.5 on there as soon as I clicked the button. And I thought, like straight away I knew what had gone on and it was actually like the motors were just stalled out. So I'm hoping I just hurt the old one, but regardless, I need to pull it apart and inspect. I'm not a huge fan of them motors anyway, so I did talk to the fellas at Roadrunner Off-Road and organise a couple new motors and a couple other goodies, which should hopefully be here in the next week or so. It's had a mad oil leak out the front. I'm assuming it's a front main seal. Well, I'm hoping it's a front main seal. So that's also coming with the other winch goodies. Like I've been driving it here and there. It's been leaking for a while, but lately it's got real bad. I did make sure the harmonic balancer was still tight and nothing silly's happened there. I think, yeah, something's gone on with the seal. I'll need to inspect that. So I'll have to strip the whole front down, radiator, fan and all that off, harmonic balancer off, chuck a new seal in, a couple new winch motors, and then the car's pretty much ready to drive again. The brakes have been getting worse and worse for some reason. I have gone around like new pads. I put the braided lines from the calipers to the hard lines. It's already got extended braided lines from the chassis down to the diffs, but the brakes just don't really work that good. I've done a bit of reading and sometimes the portion valve can play up or something happens with that. I've got to look into it a bit more, but that's probably the next thing I'm going to change, because the only difference between this car and the race car regarding the brakes is that this still has a portion valve. I threw it in the bin on the race car, and this is probably 300 kilos heavier than the race car, maybe 300 to 400 kilos, but my race car, it locks up the 37 treps on the bitumen. The brakes actually work really good. I've rebuilt the calipers and done all that. Everything's good. So I'm going to try that portion valve, but anyway, the brakes are still all right, but they're just not as good as I want them. I'm still planning on changing the turbo, manifold and wastegate on this. I want to use the same manifold again, but I want to switch to a hypergear turbo and then probably go to like a GFB 40mm gate or something like that. Just change the setup a little bit. I still plan on doing that. I was hoping to already have it done by now, but yeah, obviously I haven't. So that's still coming, but that's probably not till the end of the year. Chuck a new turbo and that on it and then get it back on the dyno. But other than that, I just want to drive it. So expect in the coming weeks a video of putting the new motors on the winch and the front main seal, and then hopefully I can squeeze in a few drives before or after we get back from Broken Hill, and then yeah, after that as well. Which then leads us to the race car. So what does the future hold for this car? I actually haven't touched this car since we won the Wild Dog at Tullarook back in June, I think it was. I literally brought it home, it sat here for a few weeks, and I gave it a good wash. I pulled the wheels off, lifted it up with the machine, gave it a good wash, and then it's just sat here. I come around and start it every few weeks. Probably every couple of weeks I come around and start it, make sure everything still works, and then that's as far as it's gone. So if you didn't watch the Tullarook video, on the first day, like the third stage in, we head on into a tree. Oh, fuck! Oh, you can't. There goes the winch. And it pushed the right-hand chassis rail back, so pretty much in between, like right where my coilover sits, like around the engine man area. It put a pretty nice kink in the chassis. So I was a bit annoyed about that, but there's not much you can do. That's racing. So that's why I haven't really touched it. I've just been deciding on what I'm actually going to do with this car. So other than the kink chassis at Tullarook, the car was actually flawless again. Other than we pushed the intercooler into the motor and a bit of other stuff. Other than the damage from that hit, the car ran perfectly. Everything ran sweet. We didn't break anything else. So I was super happy after that weekend. Like really, the car doesn't need that much work. It's just about deciding on what I'm going to do with this chassis. So I went through a few thought processes. Actually, as I was washing it, literally I was like, I'll pull the motor and the winch off it, and then I'll just part it out or sell it or whatever. And then I went to bed that night and I thought, oh, I can't do that. I think the end of this car's life will be the scrap bin when I'm done with it after it's just fully wrecked. So yeah, that was a bit silly. But there were a few other things, like the rego was due and I was not going to pay it, and then I thought I better pay it, so I paid the rego. And yeah, I was just still am pretty undecisive on what I'm going to do. So the original plan was I was just going to park it up for this year and leave it. I've got so much other stuff I want to do with me wagon. I've got the Skyline there that I want to do, and then the shed, I want to set my shed up, and there's just so much other stuff. And racing these cars, and even just driving them in general, it's not so bad when you drive it, but racing them, it does cost a lot of money in maintenance and time as well. So I've got away pretty lucky between Wild Dog at Bindaree, the first one, and then the second one at Tullarook. I only had 1 or 2 days to prep the car. But leading up to the first Wild Dog, like, it did take a lot of time and money, and then now it's going to take a lot of time and money to fix it up, depending on which route I go with this chassis rail. So that was my original thought. I'll just park it up and I'll leave it, and I'll just work on some other stuff. I want another car. I've been looking for another car, which I don't want to say too much about. It is a full drive. So I've been looking for another car, and I sort of was just like, yeah, I'll park this up and I'll focus on doing some other stuff. But Jimbo's gone ahead and decided that they're running another race in November. So November 11th and 12th, I think. And it's at Tubarak. which is a property that I haven't actually been to before, and it's rocky like Tullarook, but a bit more open again. It does look fun. And then I thought, well, I may as well enter it. So at least then I can say I've done all the races possible this year, and yeah, we gave it a red hot crack. So the original plan with the chassis rail was I was going to cut the whole front of the chassis off behind the engine mounts and then graft like a Series 2 chassis on the front with the 4-bolt engine mounts, and then yeah, move the body mounts for the shortened front. And I want to redo my coilovers. I'm not super happy with them. That's a long story, but not super happy with the coilover mounts. So I was just going to clean cut the front off and then weld a new front section on, and then redo my coilovers and bump stops, and then yeah, a few other bits and pieces I can do. And then yeah, at least I can set it up exactly how it needs to be set up. But seeing as there is a race in November and I'm pretty busy at the moment, and then me and Sherry are heading away in like 3 weeks or something, and then when I get back I've got a few things to do, and then pretty much we're racing again, so I don't have much time. So hopefully I'm going to try and pull the chassis straight with the excavator or something. I'll heat up the chassis a bit with the oxy and try and straighten the chassis out as much as I can, and then just plate it in around where it was kinked. It's not that big of an area. Yeah, plate all that in and then just get it ready to race. So other than that, it's just maintenance stuff. I'll put a new intercooler in it. The winch has got to come out. I'll service it and give it a check over. New steering shaft uni. There's a few little bits and pieces that need to be done. I'll pull the rear center out and check that. But yeah, once that chassis rail is sort of fixed, it's pretty much ready, you know, to do some maintenance stuff and then race. The downside to doing it that way is, like, I probably won't go and then cut the chassis off. Like, I'll fix it and then it'll drive. So I'll probably just like leave it like that for a while, which is what I don't want to do. I really wanted to cut it off and redo all my coilovers, but that's probably a job for next year. So it's just sort of patch it up, get it reliable enough again that we can go do one last event for the year. And then after that, I don't really know what's going to happen. So the car's not going anywhere. I'm not going to change anything. The motor, the winch, everything's still staying in the car. But what I'm sort of thinking of doing next year is taking the car a bit further to do some of the harder tracks that I don't really want to take my wagon down now that it's super clean. So I'd like to go up to like Strathbogie and like a few other spots. It'd be nice to go into New South Wales into some of the harder stuff in there. Like all that rocky stuff, I'd cry if my wagon got scratched up in there. So it'd be nice to take this car there. The downside is you got to transport it there. So that was the other thing. I've been just on Marketplace keeping an eye out for like a beaver tail little truck. I can just throw the car in the back of the truck, and then that would allow me to go further, drive different places and things like that. So yeah, stay tuned. There will be like obviously some more race car prep videos coming up for that Tubarak event. Unfortunately, much like Tullarook, it is no spectators, so you can only get on if you're like a marshal or camera crew, you're a pit crew or something like that. You can only get in there. So unfortunately no spectators, but again, I'll be making probably another 2-part video like I did for Tullarook, and hopefully I'll have a few more cameras on the ground like I did Tullarook, maybe one more. And then, yeah, at least you'll be able to see the ins and outs of what happens there. So that's pretty much what's happening with this car. So yeah, we're gonna do one more race this year. It's the last one for the year. And then I don't know what's gonna happen next year, but there's probably not gonna be much racing for me next year. I'll still go to the events, but I probably won't have my car there. Like I said, I wanna go elsewhere with the car. So stay tuned for all that. We'll give it a quick Limmy check. It's still a bit cold, got the 12 HT limiter, you know, 3 grand, that's about it. All right, now the other car's been sitting in the background. Again, I would have liked to already start this project, but I just haven't had the time to put aside for it. Yeah, obviously the time's been going into racing towards the start of the year, racing the full drive, and then my time's been spent in here. And will continue to be spent in here for a little while I set everything up. And then, yeah, so this thing probably won't start till the start of next year, but I am looking forward to that. I do have a lot of bits there ready to go. or nearly ready to go. So I'm still gathering bits and pieces, and yeah, then we can make a start. So I want to have like most of the stuff sitting there so I can just strip it down, send it to get painted, and then bring it back, new motor, you know, 6-speed conversion, all the stuff, new cradle, air locker in the back, all the good stuff. So that's probably not until the start of next year, but that's definitely coming. I did actually drive it for a couple of days, and it seems like, I haven't looked too far into it, but I think the alternator's died. As it turns out, you can't get very far without the alternator in the dark. So that left me stranded, but I've got to check that out. But it still goes, still good to drive other than the alternator. I can still start it and take it for a drive. So I don't want to pull it apart unless I really have to, because it has saved me a couple of times just sitting here ready to go. So yeah, that's an update on the 3 cars. I did touch on the last video about a budget build. I've been looking for a budget build car for like probably 6 months now. Everything's just an absolute rip-off. It seems the prices are starting to come down a little bit, so maybe I'll find something in the future. The main thing I have actually been looking for is another car to drive. I actually don't own any practical cars now, and it's sort of a pain in the ass. So for age, probably more than 6 months now, I've been looking for like a series. They're not overly hard to find. People just want ridiculous money for them. Like, they're just not worth that much money. It's insane what people are paying for them. Same thing, I noticed the prices are slightly coming down a bit, so hopefully I'll find something soon. I just want a nice car that I can set up normal. So yeah, a bit of a boring one, but I think I'm going driving with some other people on the weekend. I don't know yet. And then we're still got to get Sherry's car ready. We've got to shimmy shocks and then get it ready for Broken Hill in a few weeks. So that's all coming up, and then we'll have videos from Ultimate 4x4, and then we'll be into race car prep, racing, and then it's nearly the end of the year. We're gonna have a busy couple of months. Again, it's been busy for months already, so the rest of the year is pretty much booked out, and it's gonna be busy, but you'll see all that on the channel. If you want some hoodies, shirts, hats or stubby holders, find me on Instagram or Facebook, send me a message, support the channel. It goes a long way, and I appreciate it all, so get into it. And other than that, I'll catch you all on the next one.